What is a time billionaire and how can you become one? By the end of this video, you are going to have a great vision of what being a time billionaire means to you and how to do it. Hi, I'm Keith Weinhold. This is Get Rich Education. I serve on the Forbes Real Estate Council. I'm the weekly host of the Get Rich Education podcast. What is more important to you, time or money? I think that most people would say time. I would say time. Once time is gone, it's irreplaceable and it's irreplenishable. It's not coming back, unlike money, which could. You cannot accrue time or invest it or watch it grow like you can with money. Well, if you think that time is more valuable than money, then why are you trading away your time for money like at a day job? Why are you selling your time for dollars? And I've got to admit, I did this for a while too. It can take a little while to figure out how to get out of that. The enforced downtime that the health crisis has brought us really allowed a lot of us to reassess our lives and our attitudes toward work and whether we might be able to build more fulfilling lives, whether that new life is more lucrative or it's less lucrative. The health crisis changed so many people's relationship with money, and having the time at home is substantially more valuable to people. To watch their kids grow up and help mold and influence them, or just do anything you want to yourself, from painting to gardening. But how do you make that financially sustainable? You can't just pay your electric bill with some seashells or some rocks that you found in the backyard. How do you make a paycheck that you might have been dependent on obsolete? Unnecessary. How do you become paycheck optional? And for you, maybe you've even told yourself that a paycheck is simply too expensive. It takes too much of your time and money and energy, but it's difficult to justify doing it and you don't know how to get out of it. Now, there is nothing wrong with work. I would even go on to say that it's virtuous and society needs it. We need people to unload a barge down at the port, and you need someone to pick up your trash can from the curb each week. But wouldn't it be nice for you to be job optional and for you to trade away these obligations and these have-tos in life and replace that with a want to in your life? Hey, go ahead and put a YouTube like on this if you would. If you like content like this, it'll help to see that more of this shows up in your feed. If you like the premise of these time versus money trade-offs that I'm talking about, I would appreciate the like. But you know, our society really celebrates overwork, not just work, but overwork as a symptom of almost great moral principle, and it really creeps into every part of society. Sort of this hustle culture. You know, I've seen social media posts among entrepreneurs, and I've seen them write things like, I'm hustling so hard that I'm barely sleeping 3 hours a night, and that seems to get a whole lot of likes and positive comments. And, you know, no one actually posts a picture of themselves napping on Instagram. That just doesn't happen. Now, it was not always this way historically. In fact, for example, in pre-industrial Britain, the wealthy elite were defined by their ability to not work. They lived off land rents and capital investments. And then with the advent of the Industrial Revolution, when that came along, there was the emergence of this upwardly mobile middle class, and that's when industry replaced leisure as kind of this marker of respectability. And the contemporary iteration of this value system, if you will, a lot of it emanates from places like Wall Street and Silicon Valley, where Elon Musk has been known to work 120-hour weeks. Sheryl Sandberg, in her book Lean In, she writes about answering emails from her hospital room the day after giving birth. And not content with its brutalizing work culture, you know, Silicon Valley has also innovated devices to tether us to our offices. I mean, the fact that we often carry our office around in our pockets has really become some sort of moral imperative. So understand that I'm separating work from overwork here. To some, leisure has become a dirty word, and, you know, people's homes even become informal hotels with Airbnb, and cars are repurposed for ride-sharing apps, and all this work and things to have to manage. It's not very freeing. You know, even a vacation, it's often bookended by the constraints of work, and oftentimes a vacation's main purpose is to come back to the office recharged for ever more punishing overwork. So the whole thing of doing nothing, that seems to be something only reserved for the respectably retired or maybe for children. I mean, just think of the fact, do you wake up to an alarm most mornings? Well, think about how freeing that is. Is that freedom? And that's how one's day starts, and maybe you're waking up with a good intent, but do you want to have to continue to regularly do that? Now, the calls to end this fetishization of overwork and its concomitant self-optimization culture, that is gaining traction in both the United States and Canada. There are prominent campaigns for a 4-day work week. So it's interesting, you know, modern methods of production and technology have kind of given us this ease of having this phone in our hand, of having ease and security, but we have just continued to become as time burdened in a society as we were before there were things like machines and technology. You know what? Maybe even the term self-billionaire itself sounds sort of economical and transactional, but understand that one does not have to strictly trade their time for dollars. You don't have to do that in order to provide value for society. I mean, much of my income comes from properties that I own, and I oversee that they're being taken care of by a property manager, and I fulfill my mission by doing good in the world of making sure that the housing I provide is clean, safe, affordable, and functional. But yeah, the day-to-day operation is managed by others, and having the government do the housing rather than individuals like me, that's been proven to not work. Just look at what happens at housing projects with the tragedy of the Commons effect and so on. So I think to be a time billionaire, what you really need to understand is that wealth is measured in time, is measured in that metric that we said is the most important. So if a person doesn't have any assets and they have a modest income, then, you know, your wealth might be measured in a 2-week increment. That's the person that lives from paycheck to paycheck. 2 weeks is as long as they can go and still have sustainability to live their quality of life. That's a person living paycheck to paycheck. Now, if you have a portion of income in your life that continues to recur and you don't have to have direct involvement with it, your wealth might then be 3.8 years. You could go 3.8 years without working and still meet all of your expenses and maintain your quality of life. But the time billionaire has wealth in perpetuity. They have so many residual income streams, income that they don't need to be involved with in order for it to recur for the rest of their lives. So that time billionaire, they might be a financial multimillionaire if you want to go back to quantifying things in dollars again, but you're a time billionaire if you've made enough of this income recur for the rest of your life. So now you have front run trading your time for dollars when you're the time billionaire. Hey, go ahead and put a like on this if you like this way of thinking and this thought paradigm for creating wealth in your life. I'd really appreciate the YouTube like. Let me ask you, are you hauling water buckets to the garden every day? Or are you setting up a sprinkler system in the garden just one time? Most people haul water buckets to the gardens every day, metaphorically, by showing up at a job, trading their time for dollars. And they do that throughout their 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and often 70s and sometimes 80s. And hauling these water buckets, recurring, showing up to your job. At times, during tough days, hauling these buckets, it stresses your shoulders and your trapezius muscles and your forearms get sore hauling these water buckets to water the garden. And if you don't do it, the crops will die and they won't yield any fruit and you'll be homeless. You've got to keep watering the garden, getting that income stream. Instead, if you build a sprinkler system just one time, what you've done is you have begun to tap into a passive income stream. You are setting up a sprinkler system on the side while you're still hauling some water buckets, and just a slow trickle starts flowing through that sprinkler system with the first durable income stream that you have passively. Yeah, so you want to focus on investing in something that provides a yield, either monthly or annually. In the stock world, this is called the dividend. In the real estate world, this is called cash flow. And you're not just merely hoping that the price of something goes up. Hopefully it does go up over time, but it's paying you an income stream regularly in the meantime. And that income stream does not come out of the capital value of that asset. That is supplemental. And this doesn't always have to be with real estate. This could come through something like book royalties. That's a passive income stream after you've set up the sprinkler system or written the book and then get the royalties over time. But being an author myself, writing my first book in 2017, I can tell you that very, very, very few books make much money at all. If you've got a huge chunk of money and you're going to have it before you're very old, you could say have $10 million invested in dividend yielding stocks that yield 2%, and that would give you $200K of income per year that you don't have to work for. But a lot of people have a difficult time amassing $10 million when they're still actually young enough to enjoy the income stream. So that's why I'm a big advocate of building passive income streams, sprinkler systems, through real estate. It's easy to understand and plug into. It takes little education. It's stable. It's very scalable. So say, however, that you just start off with your first rental property. It only has $200 of monthly cash flow, that rent income exceeding all the expenses by $200. And you're like, so what? $200? This is a really long road. Not as long as you think, because that $200 grows substantially faster than compound interest due to things like leverage and arbitrage and inflation and the fact that you never have to pay capital gains tax during the entire ride. This really grows substantially, getting water moving through your sprinkler system faster. Income where you don't have to be involved hauling the water buckets. So as you grow your sprinkler system on the side of your hauling water buckets, which is your day job, at some point you might get 20% of the flow through your sprinkler system that you had in your water buckets. Now you don't have to haul as many water buckets, though you could if you wanted to, until you finally replace 100% of that in the sprinkler system, meaning that you have enough passive income passing through your sprinkler system to meet or exceed all of your expenses. And one day you quit your job. You don't use any buckets. You just have a fully operable sprinkler system that runs 24 hours a day, 168 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, year after year. That's your sustainable sprinkler system. Now, it still takes a little maintenance, even if you're not the hand out there maintaining the hose, just like I have emails to my property managers to make sure things are okay from time to time. But the property manager is the one out there in the hot sun turning a wrench on the spigot or patching a hole in the sprinkler system hose. So my income comes from property managers in various US states and even some foreign nations. So if you want to make a paycheck optional or expendable, this is the mindset for doing it. Are you hauling water buckets daily, or are you setting up a sprinkler system in the yard just one time? A lot of people subscribe to work smarter, not harder, but a lot of people only do that in one shell, and they only think of that in terms of how they're working at their job. But think about working smarter, not harder, by taking a pull back and looking at the big picture. Build that sprinkler system instead. Give yourself options in life. You can just simply have the option of going to your job. You don't have to. Ask yourself what's scalable. Ask yourself what's sustainable. Ask yourself what is living a life by design. These are great questions to ask yourself. And to step away from the philosophical analogy of the water buckets and the sprinkler system, to make it a bit more real for you, this is the way that your new life could look as a time billionaire. Take your bucket list, these things in your life that you've always wanted to do. That might be rafting through the Grand Canyon with your family, or writing your first book, or having time to volunteer to build homes for Habitat for Humanity, or visiting all of the countries of Europe. Take all those things on your bucket list, and what the Time Billionaire does with those is they move those items from their bucket list over here on to their calendar. That's what the Time Billionaire can do now. Being a time billionaire is really a proxy for freedom, and who wouldn't want more of that? I'm talking about mindset stuff here more. I talk often about the mechanics of how passive income works with real estate and with the numbers elsewhere on this channel and on the Get Rich Education podcast every Monday. Go ahead and leave a comment below if you would. How do you think about time being measured in wealth? How does that change your mindset now that you think about it that way? And tell me what you think about the analogy of hauling water buckets to the garden over and over and over again every day versus setting up a sprinkler system once. Did that help you at all? Please comment below. I'm Keith Weinhold. Thanks for being here, but you weren't here for me. You were here for you. We'll see you in the next video.